Cool. Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for coming, and thank you to the Street Fight folks for inviting the IAB to participate in this conference. For those of you who are looking at a print version of the agenda, I should say that I am not Anna Bagger, who is unfortunately unable to be here today. If I were, I would be blonder and have a little bit of a Swedish accent, but I work with her as part of the Interactive Advertising Bureau's Mobile Marketing Center of Excellence, and so we work for the part of the IAB that serves as a trade association seeking to spur the growth of mobile as an interactive medium, as a digital content business. So we think a lot about mobile in all of its various manifestations, and certainly one of the aspects of mobile that we're most excited about is the coming together of mobile and local, and the ability to use local targeting, local information to really unlock the value of mobile as an advertising medium. And so that's really the theme for this session, and we've put together a great set of speakers to talk about different points of view on this coming together of mobile and local. And I'll ask everybody to introduce yourselves, say a quick word about yourself. And I think, when we're talking about mobile and local, for that matter, definitions matter a lot, and everybody kind of thinks about the space a little bit differently. So talk a little bit about where you come from, but also your company's definition of what is mobile exactly, and how do you define local as a part of that. So Sharon, since you're closest, we'll kind of start with you and go down the road.
Sharon Knitter, is that good? I was told to speak closely. Sharon Knitter from Cars.com. How many of you know what Cars.com is? A few. All right, so it's kind of an automotive media site is what it is. Local dealers pay us, we have about 15,000 of them on now, pay us to put their listings on our site. So when they were talking about automation this morning, that makes sense. And then we have about 20 editors who actually review cars. So we're always getting new cars in. So for us, right now about 30% of our traffic is local, mobile rather. The way we define mobile is handsets, tablets to the app, but tablet traffic that's going to the regular desktop site we do not consider to be mobile, because when we look at the actual behavior, it mimics desktop site so much that the chances are good that they're not actually mobile, because we see such differences in how people have contacts and engagement on the smaller handsets.
Okay, great, thanks. David, everybody knows AT&T, but not everybody maybe knows AT&T Adworks. So if you can talk a little bit about...
You guys all know AT&T?
Who here has heard of AT&T?
Yeah.
Small company, startup.
Yeah, it's a small company. We've been around about 140 years now. So AT&T Adworks is the group within AT&T that sells media across the three screens, television, online, and mobile. And what we do in a very, very privacy-compliant manner is take aggregate and anonymous information on our subscribers, what they're doing across those three screens, and use it to better reach target audiences. So, it's interesting. To us, mobile is an ever-expanding definition. Just came back from CES, so mobile now might include the refrigerator that is connected online. Mobile might include my car, which becomes a mobile hotspot. Seeing a lot of different changes in there. What's exciting to us, and we've done a couple things that I'll talk about a little bit later, is really whatever we define mobile as. Let me ask this question, who does not have a cell phone with them right now?
Whoa.
Right? It's a device that we have with us constantly. It's the one personal device. I speak about this a lot. If I get to the train station and I do not have my phone, I miss the train because I have to go back and get my phone. If I do not have my wallet, I borrow money all day. Right? It's the one device that's with us constantly. So local, again, can mean a lot of different things based on where I'm traveling, what I'm doing, and how I'm using my device. I like that you see a difference in behavior based on where they're going, because that's pretty critical.
Yeah.
So.
Great, thanks. Monica, talk a little bit about XAD and your take on mobile and local.
Sure. Monica Ho, VP of Marketing at XAD. For those of you in the local space, you may have heard of us. We're in an ad network, which means we place local ads for brands direct as well as with agencies. And our advertising, we focus mainly on mobile search ads as well as mobile display. And how we define mobile is very similar to cars.com. It's the mobile devices, tablets, as well as your mobile device handsets. And we are looking at, the expanding world of mobile, but those are the devices we primarily focus on today. And local is very important to mobile for a lot of the same reasons that a lot of the presenters up here have talked about. Local brings context to what you're looking at on your mobile device, and it adds a lot of relevance. So as an ad network, we focus exclusively on inventory that has geo signals so that we can use those signals to better target ads.
Great. I'm Eric Hadley from the Weather Channel. Hopefully you all checked the weather this morning before you came here to see if you could walk or if you're going to have to spend half an hour looking for a taxi or jump in the subway. At the Weather Channel, we really think the weather is inherently local everywhere. You really care about the weather where you are. You care about the weather. We know where you are from the zip code. If you're going somewhere, we know that you're going to put in the name of the city versus the zip code, with the exception of 90210, the most popular zip code ever. But weather is really inherently local everywhere you go. And at our company, we have over 100 million downloads on our apps. But when you think about local, it's even the PC or the computer in our business, because very few people have a computer that sits at their house. You take it home, you look at the computer, you take it to work, you look at it on the train, you look at it at Starbucks. So our local business really encompasses the phone, the tablet, the computer, and in our TV business, we have this very great technology that provides local on the 8s. If you watch the Weather Channel, a lot of you who are out of town probably watched at the hotel this morning for a couple minutes. Every 8 minutes, we're going to tell you what the weather's like in the zip code that you're in, so we can target local TV ads into the zip code with this crazy cable technology we have. So our business, everything's local, and to a large degree, everything is mobile because of the way that you engage with the Weather Channel.
Yeah.
Joe, if I could
Sure.
just add one thing.
Please.
We're questioning whether we'll even be talking about mobile in 18 months. Will it end up being in-home, out-of-home, large screen, small screen? So no matter how much you use your refrigerator, you're never going to carry it with you, right? And so this term mobile has become something that represents what it really isn't. And so I think it makes our mobile product managers very nervous when I say things like that, or people who are, in charge of a mobile community. But this idea of in-home, out-of-home is probably a much better explanation, because I would bet many of you don't have landlines. And so you're sitting on your sofa. And I think the IAB's got research that shows that so many are at home.
Sure. Yeah, I think whatever kind of mobile activity you're talking about, shopping, watching video, anything really, a substantial percentage of those activities happen while somebody's at home with their mobile device. Even things that you'd think, well, but that person has a PC. Why are they using their smartphone for this? And it comes down to convenience and ease. And is this information that I want to take with me when I leave my home, even if I'm at home when I'm looking it up? So I don't want to make this a technology-focused session. That's not what we're meant to do. But I think a couple of different kinds of location came up, whether geo-targeting based on what the wireless network knows about you, zip codes that the user manually inputs because they want valuable information back. How do those different kinds of location information stack up? And especially, Monica, for someone like you who has to deal with whatever your content partners have available, how do you juggle all these different sort of levels of granularity and detail as far as location data goes?
One of the things that we've done is we've actually developed a process to look at all of that data that comes in. Again, we're a network, so we work with hundreds and hundreds of different publishing partners, and we use their traffic to place ads. And what we found, and especially because we focus on local traffic that gives a local signal, was that sometimes where we thought an ad was being placed, let's say in a particular zip code or a radius around a zip code, it wasn't actually showing up there sometimes. And we started looking at that, and what we found was that a lot of the location data that's being passed sometimes through the publishers is actually pretty inaccurate. It's very noisy. And what I mean by that is when you start looking at lots of data, one of the most common zip codes we see is 0000. It's because, if you're asked to register on a site, come on, be honest, we're not always as truthful, because you know that sometimes that information is going to be used to target. So we do see this very messy location data. In the case of lat long, which is that GPS signal, we have advertisers saying, well, we want that lat long. You're a location-specific ad network. We know you're going to get it right. And we get lots of lat-long signal, but the reality is once you look at it, sometimes we're finding that lat-long is actually a converted zip code. So a zip code that's been converted to a lat-long because ad networks like ourselves are asking for it. And so the publisher's like, yeah, I can convert it to a lat-long, but that's not what we really want. So we've developed this process where we evaluate the signal accuracy, and then we place advertising based on the goal and what type of market they're trying to reach on those types of inventory.
Yeah, Eric and Sharon, both of your value propositions to your audience is based on somebody actually telling you where they are. If they want to know dealers near them, if they want to know the weather outside right then. So do you find that you still have issues with kind of cleaning location data, making sure that people are giving you accurate information? Do you get any automated sort of location from the device?
We have lots of ways to tell the location. Again, the biggest one is people tell us because they want to know what it's like right here. The thing we're finding with so many partners is go more granular. So we have a bunch of partners who can go into the zip code and talk about the demographics in that zip code. And that's where we're really trying to go, is get a little bit lower click and tell me what happens in that zip code by day part. How is it different during the workday versus the night, the weekend versus the week in the zip code? And that's the stuff we're trying to really figure out, because as we go from a national advertiser who can target their message, the time, place, and the weather, we're starting to find more and more really local advertisers who only care. If you're a bar and you know that Tuesday nights are slow, you want to target people who are 21, who are likely to come there. You want to say, hey, it's raining, come in, we have a fireplace. Or, hey, it's hot, we have a roof deck. So that's what we're trying to go, is that next level down within the zip code. But because of the nature of the business, people really tell us where they are.
Yeah.
You don't want to say, hey, I'm worried about personal information, so I wanted New York, but you gave me New Jersey. That's just not relevant. I mean, maybe in Los Angeles where it's sunny all the time, it doesn't matter, but here it changes so much, and people look to us for that information, and really just that information.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So for us, it's sort of both. When people are searching for inventory, they give us their zip code. Now, it could be you're looking for a car for your mom, and you're looking in her zip code, right? So from that standpoint, we do depend on the user. Now, once somebody is on a lot, so at least for the our iPhone app, we can tell that they're on a dealer lot because we actually have them all mapped, and it's all permission-based. And so I spend most of my time not thinking about today in our company, but 3 or 5 years out. So the goal would be for us is to really understand when they're on the dealer lot, and maybe it's not even the first time they're on a dealer lot, right? It makes a difference if you're shopping for a car, that first time you're on a dealer lot versus the third time you're on a dealer lot. Maybe the type of information you want, the type of advertising you'd be susceptible to could be very different. So, I think today it's a blend because not all of our mobile products are completely consistent. I'd love to say they are, but we have a harder time with mobile web getting that accuracy.
Yeah, great. And David, rounding out with you, you guys clearly, by virtue of having access to the network location data, have very precise data. So let me ask you about from the buying side perspective. Like, is that what marketers want? Do they really kind of want the exact person in the crosshairs, little blue dot on a map, or do you find people want to cast a little bit of a wider net, and how much educating do you have to do about the trade-offs there?
At the end of the day, I think what all marketers want is to reach the right person in the right place with the right ad at the right time. So whether that be I'm looking for a car, so I need to know that information about cars right now, whether it be I'm looking for a restaurant that I want to go to or whatever it is, many times people want information that's localized. We've all had the experience when you just go to a general search engine and it gives you the first 5 results are places that are 6,000 miles away from where you are. Mm-hmm. So we are certainly getting asked a lot more about how do we better define location. It's one of the reasons we're working right now with geofencing, which is another way to gather location information. With geofencing, of course, it's critical that it's opt-in and that people have specifically said, yes, I'll share my location with you. But I do think that many people are now looking at how do I drive people to a transaction? How do I drive to an action, I should say, whether it's a transaction or I'm just going to go to the dealership or I'm going to go to a grocery store or whatever it is. I think more and more brands are looking for that action step, and location provides that.
So it's not just viewing an ad, it's actually doing something as a result of seeing that ad that the advertiser can kind of count up and know, oh yeah, this campaign is working. So I want to make sure that everyone in the audience knows what geofencing is. So can you give a quick capsule?
Sure. So geofencing is actually we're able to select, if you will, a fence around a specific area that when you walk through that fence, it will alert you on your cell phone. It is, here on the panel description, what most people talk about is I walk past Starbucks and they send me a text message that says, come on and get a cup of coffee. And yes, that is technically what geofencing is, but there's a lot more that can be done with geofencing as it relates to the broader advertising messaging as well.
Yeah, cool. So Sharon, your knowledge of when somebody's on a dealer lot, that's you've built geofences around the dealers that work with you.
In theory, but we haven't really fenced them. It's just that we know what they are because we have to do directories and things like that with that information.
Right.
I mean, in the auto category, depending on where you live, chances are good you have 5 or 6 dealerships all right next to each other. So the true idea of geofencing when someone enters an area and I can send them a message, it doesn't really work in auto because I'd be getting 5 different messages from all those dealers, which I don't really want. So for us, it's actually the geofencing part has less to do with sending messages and more to determining what is the true value of mobile.
Yep.
Because, for example, a very significant portion of folks who are on our site never send a lead, never make a phone call. But our site, I love our site, but you don't go there if you're not buying a car, right? It's not really for gearheads. It's a very utilitarian site. But I know they're buying cars, so can I determine that those people who didn't send a lead are actually on a dealer lot? That becomes a very different proposition. So it's a little different. It's a little on the backward side.
Right.
We think about it differently. We don't do the push notifications, but again, we knew you were all going to be at this conference. So if you check the weather in this zip code right here, you're going to get a message on the Weather Channel app that's targeted to you. And then click through, we ran an ad for a rainy day, which it is, and we had an ad program for a sunny day. And it's messaged to you, and if you click through, it's going to give you all the local stats for the Weather Channel. Again, that's our geofence. We geofenced this conference, 1, so I could tell you guys we did it, and 2, so you could learn a little bit more about the Weather Channel. But that's the way we think about it. And we have advertisers who do sports sponsorships where they'll geofence the stadium, the golf course. We geofence Fashion Week, we geofence CES. So people are getting the relevant message to what the event might be is the way we think about it. We don't push the notification because everybody who checks the weather in this neighborhood doesn't want to be pushed a message about this conference, but people are here, you can check it and see it. So we think about it more as what's going on in that market, starting to geofence the Super Bowl, leading up to it. What's the weather going to be like in New Orleans? And we're working with partners of San Francisco and Boston, and the teams that may be there, so people are checking the weather and making their plans. The advertiser can get their message in, and it's a good way to either kind of guerrilla market around something big or reinforce. You're spending millions and millions of dollars on TV to own it. Why don't you just own the geography around it as well?
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. So let's actually talk about sort of the business and revenue implications of being able to add local to all the other ways to make an ad message relevant. How much, you see things in the industry that kind of or industry press that talk about kind of local is the killer app for mobile advertising. It's the thing that's going to make mobile advertising a $10 billion, $20 billion, $30 billion industry in the next few years. How real is that? I hope it's real. But how much do you see that on the demand side, on the buying side today versus again how much do we need to help agencies and brands understand what adding local to the mix can do for their messages?
I think for our ad network, 80% of the campaigns that we receive are all locally targeted. And I think when we say locally targeted, that could be utilizing something like geofencing, or it could be utilizing even more broader location like DMA targeting or city targeting, because a lot of advertisers still want to reach that broader audience. So I think it's really something that a lot of agencies and brands are starting to take notice to, and especially because something that you mentioned before, Joe, which is a lot of times when somebody sees something locally or they're in a local market and they get a relevant ad message, it does spur action. And a lot of times that's what these ads are trying to do. So in addition to utilizing location to target an ad, it's really important, and something that we do on our network, and I know Weather Channel does too, is also leveraging that location in the ad creative, or even making sure that the advertisers that you're serving up in that location are relevant to that place and time. Something that's a little bit different for XAD than some other networks is we started as a search network. So we've got a lot of mobile local properties, and we're able to leverage that search data real time and then historical. So we use that as an element as well on top of location to serve more relevant ads.
You know, Joe, I think that's another thing where the definition is important, because I'm guessing most of yours are national brands who want local targeting, which is very different than when people say local advertising, they're thinking of the dry cleaner, they're
Joe's
thinking
Pizza,
of
whatever.
yeah. And so what we're saying, even with our dealers who spend a lot of money on online and in other ways, today, even with 30% of our traffic, I'm not sure in every market that it's a smart thing for a dealer to buy a separate mobile campaign. Mm-hmm. It's important for all their inventory to be on our site. But I think, you know, that process is still going to take a little while before they really do it. Now, I think the most important thing is, you know, we might not be measuring clicks. We might not, I mean, it might not be a banner ad, right? I mean, it'd be pretty sad, no offense to anybody, but if in 3 years all we're talking about is now we have 2 banner ads, I mean, I think you have to think of what the power of this device is, and if you can gain the trust of your customers, I think the advertising potential is so much more interesting than a banner here or there. Right. You know, so I think we have to really think about, you know, I'm not sure we even got it right digitally, right? Is a banner the best thing we could have ever done? And a click? What does a click prove? But if in mobile we think about what is the action, can we measure that action, and sort of change that dynamic to have something that's truly important for the advertisers, I think that's a bigger play.
Yeah. David and Monica, you both are, as ad networks, you're both sort of intermediaries. So you talk not only to the brands and the agencies, but also to publishers as well. How much, when you have that side of the conversation, how much do you need to explain to them how to leverage location as a way to add value to their advertising revenue streams?
I think, you know, like anything else, there are some publishers who are getting it completely. There are some organizations that really understand that power of local, and there are others that are still trying to figure out what it means to them. You know, and we see that range, and with some groups we're doing a lot of education and really helping them understand, and with other groups they're just coming to us and they get it, and we're just playing together really well.
Yeah.
On our side, like AT&T, we have very different publishing partners. And for the ones that we're seeing inaccurate location data, what we try to do is partner with them to show them how we're better monetizing another publisher by getting more accurate location. And sometimes the publishers can't. Like, as you guys know, I mean, there's only certain apps and sites that ask you for your location. You have to have permission to access that GPS signal. But we try to make sure that they understand that location is so important. So even if it is zip code that they have or city, it's passing what they think is accurate, not converting it. So we try to work just to show them how it's helping to make ads more relevant, and it's coming through in actions.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things, you know, if you look at advertising from way back, right, what we've tended to do over the last century is we took whatever worked on the first medium and then we just moved it over to the second medium. So we had radio, and the early TV shows were simply radio shows that they put on camera and ran exactly like a radio show. And it took us a couple years, maybe a decade or so, before we had TV shows. And when we started things like online and digital, we simply moved whatever we were doing on TV into that space as well. I think as we move with mobile, to your point, it's not about just looking at what have we done in the other mediums, because the way I engage with TV and the way that TV can engage with the entire infrastructure of advertising is totally different than the way mobile can. So at the end of the day, it might be incredibly valuable for Cars.com to say, we know that this many people looked at this kind of car and went to the dealership for that kind of car. And that's much more valuable than simply saying this many people clicked on a link or this many people saw my commercial on TV.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about the trade-off between precision and reach, right? Because advertisers really want two things, right? They want to reach the right person in the right place at the right time, but they also want to reach a lot of people. And it's probably an apocryphal story, but somebody told me once about a marketer that wanted to reach Hispanic female skateboarders between 18 and 24 at the corner of Van Nuys and wherever in LA. And then got upset when the campaign ran and they didn't reach millions of people. And it's kind of like, so again, when you're kind of talking to clients and trying to help them design a media plan, like how do you help them navigate between we want people just at this corner who fit this type versus we want to reach maybe a broader audience that might still find our message relevant?
For us, it becomes more of a sales issue. How are we going to sell these? Because to be honest, we're not going to sell you 300 people in a zip code. The operational costs of doing that, there's no way you would pay the CPM that it would be worth it. So part of it is to figure out, what's the right bundling strategy, and not just for Cars.com, but for our advertisers. What's really going to move the needle there? And that's where I guess I feel as if, mobile users aren't a discrete group anymore, right? There isn't a mobile segment, it's everyone. So for us, at least, most of our advertisers want to be across the platform, right? So they want to hit the desktop folks. If you're Lexus, you want to hit new luxury buyers, period. So to some point, I think we have to make sure we're not offering up sales packages that aren't going to work for anybody. Sometimes you have to say no.
Right.
And I would say that's where we do a lot of education, right? So it's helping people understand that sometimes potentially reaching 5 people are exactly who you want to reach. And other times you want to go more broadly. So it's really about setting those expectation levels up front so that if they're asking for a very specific audience, which a lot of times is happening today, we come back very clearly to say, okay, if that's your target audience, this is your potential reach, right? There's only 12 Hispanic females between this age at this intersection. You can't reach 1 million of them. They don't exist. So that's where we spend a lot of time in the education process.
Yeah, makes sense.
On our side, it's pretty similar to what David just said. I mean, but on our side too, because we have such location-specific inventory, sometimes that really small scale comes in the form of retailers. We saw this during Black Friday, where we had a lot of retailers saying, well, I want to reach consumers within a 1 mile or even half-mile radius of my store between these 3 hours. And it's really difficult, and they have these big budgets that they, and it's great. I mean, as an ad network, we're like, oh, we want that money, but realistically, it's not going to happen. So, like others, we go back and we say, look, here is the audience you're going to reach. Here's what you can expect to spend. Our recommendation is expand that net a little bit, and that's where we leverage the search data to say, okay, well, if somebody's 1.1 miles away, does that make them less attractive to you? So that's where we leverage other data to kind of bring that relevancy factor into our ad targeting.
Yeah,
I think we're in a similar
really
spot.
Yeah.
We are not the biggest reach player on any one of our platforms, and we're not the most niche. We're not going to get the skateboarder in Van Nuys. What we get is a very large segment of people, and we can help marketers understand how the time, place, the location, and the weather really matter. So we can go and say, on a rainy day in the zip code, this is what the business situation will be like. This is how your business will be impacted. So we have this kind of fourth magic variable of how weather impacts your business, and taking the big data of customer sales, big data of all of our weather data for 30 years we've had the business, or probably 5+ we've had it, and say, hey, we're not going to be the super niche for this audience you want, and we're not going to get everyone, but we're going to help you understand how these people you're looking for react in these weather conditions in these zip codes. So it becomes much more of a data play rather than a reach play for us.
Great. I want to take at least a couple of minutes for questions from the audience. But while you're thinking about it, one more. I think one of the things that's sort of exciting as far as ways to use location is I'm starting to see a message that along the lines of, when you know where someone is, oftentimes you know more than just where they are. You can kind of intuit or infer some information about them. You know, people in a playground on a weekend afternoon are likely parents, right? That kind of thing. So how much are you using that aspect of location, where if you know where somebody is at a specific time, you likely know more than just their latitude and longitude? Is that something that you can another way to unlock value for advertisers? David, you want to?
Yeah, without a doubt. And again, I think being a network where we have different layers of information, and again, I stress very clearly, very privacy compliant, where nothing is personally identified ever, but we know who the subscriber is, and then we can look at behavior across that subscriber. So that becomes 2 layers of very important information. That, as you're saying, doesn't necessarily always give you scale, but that data really gives you information about reaching the right people and what that person looks like on an aggregate basis. So, yeah, we think it's becoming incredibly important. We think we'll see many more people, thank you. Many more people looking at that combination of data that you can pull from location. Because it will really identify audiences very powerfully.
You know, how many of you live in a state where the auto dealers are closed on Sunday? So not in New York, but in many markets.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey, they're totally closed on Sunday. So a very interesting thing is we see a big spike in mobile traffic on Sundays.
Yep.
So again, what does that tell us? It tells us that people are on a lot. Because the lots are open, you can walk around the cars. They don't want to be bothered at that moment because they're maybe pretty high up in the purchase funnel. So could Cars.com provide different information that day when the salespeople aren't there because they need, consumers need it? So it's an interesting thing with our particular category, this Sunday phenomenon.
Yeah, so that's a great example of it's not just where, it's when, and you can learn more than just that. So great. Any questions? Sure, go ahead.
Have you ever tried to measure the premium that advertisers are willing to pay? Let's say if you had, you could say I can target your state.
Sorry, there's a mic.
The question was just.
The question is, if you have ever measured the premium advertisers are willing to pay. So just assume, let's say I could say, we'll target the state of Connecticut, or we'll target the town of Greenwich, Connecticut. What sort of premium are they willing to pay to say we can actually get it down to that zip code level?
I won't actually say ad rates, but I can tell you for really accurate location inventory, especially when you're looking for, even though we don't love it, but a very granular audience, it does go for a premium. It could be $8, $10, $12 more sometimes, depending on the time, the location. So you definitely see premiums.
And I'd say we are not to comment on ad rates, but for our business, you talk about financial institutions. When you get a higher household income, that's more likely. The travel business, they're going to sell higher end packages. So we can say we have a higher propensity of someone who's likely to take the $1,000 trip to Hawaii versus the $100 trip to, the Jersey coast, Jersey Shore. So I wouldn't say we have a premium for those kind of markets, but we have the ability to target, the household income, the professions that people do, and that starts to balance where the advertisers want to be. And then you lay out that on the time that people are looking for these kind of things on the weekend versus the week. So going in and targeting Greenwich, not necessarily, but there's advertisers who want to buy the people who have a higher propensity to live in Greenwich.
Cool. I think we got time for one more question.
Hi, Howie Schwartz, Human Demand. Question on looking at the actual profile of the user, whether it's built on device IDs or another method versus just looking at more of a general lat long. So if you start to understand a profile of the user over time versus saying a device is coming up and either having this zip code or this lat long, kind of thoughts on that side of it?
Sure. In our network right now, we are leveraging device ID somewhat, and we're also looking at technology like, there's fingerprinting and different things like that. For our network, we rely heavily on location profiles because of the privacy concerns. that are around mobile right now. And what I mean by a location profile is because we have our search network, we're able to see at any given time of day, real time or historical, what type of search activity is happening. And we leverage that a lot more in our targeting. And again, it's a location profile. So, we know when there's more likely to be a need for a plumber versus a restaurant or something like that. So that's what we tend to rely heavily on in our network.
Yeah. Eric, do you build up a sense? I mean, because you got people coming back to your properties, day in and day out.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet because we do have such high frequency and so many devices. We can start to build profiles of, people have these cities. Look at it. What's the similarity of someone who has New York, LA, and Chicago on the phone, the tablet, and the PC? But we haven't got down to the signed-in user profile stuff. It's a discussion we have quite a bit. But we just have, again, so much volume and so much frequency that you get a pretty good picture of what the people are like.
Cool. We have 1 minute left, so if anybody has a quick question, we can probably take it. Otherwise, I'm trying to think of one of those classic wrap-up questions. In one word, what do you think the state of mobile and local is going to be in 2013? But I don't really want to ask that, right? So in 1 or 2 words, we touched just a little tiny bit on the creative side of this, right? It's not enough to just know where somebody is. The creative has to be relevant to that as well. So can you say, like in just a couple of words, characteristics of creative that really takes advantage of this ability to be mobile and local at the same time?
I think David really touched on it. We've always taken the thing that worked on another medium, moved it over, and you see the mobile is all about this little teeny like Band-Aid sized banner. We've got to evolve to, it's not the web version made smaller for the phone with 100% share of voice. It's got to be something, it allows to tell the story if someone's checking it in the morning, the night, and the evening, and really takes advantage of the location and the frequency in that. I think that's going to be the big evolution. And to your point, I hope in 2 years we're not talking about 2 banners versus 1, but we're talking about remember when it used to be a banner.
Right. I mean, it gets down to, I think, how do you measure success? How does an advertiser measure success to some degree? And one thing we see, if we said leads to our dealers, mobile would not. I mean, it's fine. But if we compared it exactly the same way as we did desktop, you'd say it's not that successful until you see how many folks are printing out or looking at directions and maps. Well, that's a much better lead than an email, right? Because you're really not looking for directions to that dealership unless you're going to go there. So to some extent, we would miss all of that, right? So I think that's where the creativity is going to also have to come in.
Yep. Okay. Great.
And I'll say one of the things about the phone that everybody talks about, which is because it's true, is it's intimate. It's something that's with us 24/7, and we have to remember that we're dealing with a device that has that level of intimacy, and therefore speak in a totally different voice when we're on that device than we would on many other devices out there.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, and my comments would mirror a lot of the same of the panel, so I really don't have anything.
So it's sort of custom, intimate, and think not just about how you're building the creative, but also what the success metrics are, and that's sort of the best way to unlock. And I think I agree with all of that. That sounds great. So thank you all very much for joining me. Thanks again for having us, and enjoy the rest of the day.